You are born in Puri.
Yes, sir.
Is your family having any members in that Puri priests? There are some 1,000 priests in Puri. इसमें कोई है महापात्र आपका, your uncles or grandfather or somebody?
No, sir.
Achha, you came out of the temple business long ago.
Yes, sir. In fact, I was just born in Puri. However, in less than a month, my family left Puri. So my larger part of childhood has been in Bhubaneswar, sir.
Oh, not Kotak?
Not Cuttack, sir. So I have, I was born in Puri but brought up by and large in Bhubaneswar.
Well, your father was in the capital, was some. Which department was he working in?
So my father worked with the Directorate General of Military Intelligence.
So he must have been all over India, all over India.
Yes, sir. He worked in Punjab, Mizoram, and mostly Calcutta in Fort Williams. Sir, I stayed with my mother, sir. So she was a professor with Odisha government. So I stayed with her, sir.
In Bani Bihar?
Sir, she was a professor. She retired as a professor from Shailabala College, sir. Before that, she was an associate professor with Rajdhani College and other government colleges.
Very good, very good. Anyway, you are a highly qualified man. Apart from engineering, you also have an MBA and then wide experience. So there is nothing much really we can do. But I'll now hand you over to the former Chief Secretary of Telangana State. He'll ask a few questions, and then there are 3 more panel members. They will ask few questions. Your optional is sociology. No?
Yes, sir.
So all engineers will take only sociology or anthropology. So you took sociology. The person before you took Shashank, Tripurari, he took anthropology.
So
these are the subjects very popular with engineers. Right then, so he will ask a few questions. Eventually, towards the end, I'll come back. Okay?
Sure, sir.
Right, Dr. M.G. Gopal.
Yes, sir. Yes. So, Mr. Jubin Mohapatra, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, who is your role model in civil services? Who is your role model? Who prompted you to prepare for civil services by losing a very lucrative jobs where you are drawing, up to 30 lakh rupees salary per month, per year?
So I have 2 role models, one from my personal life and one from civil services. My personal role model is my late mother. She really, really motivated me to get into civil services so that I can contribute to the nation building process. My first role model. The role model from civil services is late IPS Shri K.S. Vyas, sir, who was behind the Greyhounds Force of Andhra Pradesh.
Yes.
So, of valor and emotional intelligence, as well as leadership, is something I'm very, very motivated by. Sir.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Now, tell me, there is a scheme to join Government of India at director's level or joint secretary's level. After putting in,
sir, I'm really sorry, but I'm not able to hear you. Your voice is.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah. Now, have you heard of the parallel entry, lateral entry scheme in Government of India, where one can join after putting in some experience as a, private sector executive, as director or joint secretary's level? Okay.
Yes,
now, do you really think that this kind of a scheme will help professionals like you? After working in private sector, you can get into government and assist in policy making better than joining the civil services as youngsters and then gaining experience advice in policy?
Sir, I believe it is a progressive step, and it will definitely help in infusing certain amount of specialism. Because with more and more technology and sophisticated challenges that we're seeing today in society, I think specialists are required. So lateral will help the government plug the gaps. So that being said, I believe these 2 routes are not mutually exclusive, and they can work together, sir. For example, with experience such as mine, even if I at the grassroots level of civil services through UPSC, I can still use my experience and skill sets as I progress in the from policy implementation to policy making, sir.
Hmm.
So, I see them as mutually exclusive.
Okay. Now, you also would have heard of Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, who is now the Minister for IT and Railways, who was
Yes,
in
sir.
IAS, subsequently resigned, joined private sector, and then got into politics.
Yes, sir.
Now, do you think he will be able to contribute better than the normal, bureaucrats turned politicians without the private sector in the in between?
So I believe the wide range of experience that he brings to the table, both as a bureaucrat as well as somebody who has worked in the private sector and now in politics. I think the exposure and experience are always helps in building certain qualities of leadership, emotional intelligence, skill sets, and technology exposure. So definitely an asset to him as he embarks on his new, domain of politics. And so working in the private sector rather than being a negative is a positive as well, sir, because currently the thrust is on creation of employment and growth through startup policies and through investment from private sector itself. Hence, his experience will be an asset, sir, I believe.
Now, considering that the bureaucrat is expected to be neutral in giving advice to the policymakers, that is the ministers in Delhi, if you join from Deloitte straight away, if you go to Government of India as a lateral entrant, will there be any conflict of interest?
So the conflict of interest can be addressed by observing the arm's length principle. And sir, although I have limited knowledge as to how the recruitment is done at in lateral entry,
Okay.
sir, the UPSC is involved in carrying out the interviews and background checks. So, sir, I believe there are some checks and balances which can be used to avoid the conflict of interest first. Secondly, yes, no matter which is the route for a bureaucrat to join the government, the absolute social and political neutrality is must. And, for a bureaucrat to discharge his services. So that I do agree, sir, that needs to be there. But I believe there are already checks and balances, sir, to ensure that the conflict of interest and any probable lobbying for any particular private interest is to be averted, sir.
Considering the fact that once you join as a lateral entrant, you'll have a tenure of contract of 3 years. And considering the fact that the safeguards available to a bureaucrat under Article 311, 312 are not available to such contractual officers who join as lateral entrants, will they not be succumbing to the pressures of the politicians because they would be by then neither here nor there?
Sir, I believe succumbing to the interference of politicians or even private interests is again a very, very personal trait, sir, rather than a systemic trait. So if somebody has
good. Okay, thank you. Now let's get back to Odisha state and the tribals and what the Restoration of Forest Rights Act 2006 is expected to deliver, and in your view, to what extent it has delivered in Odisha?
The landmark social legislation, that is the Forest Rights Act of 2006, has enjoyed stellar implementation in the state of Odisha. And it was one of the most appreciated states for its implementation till the year 2012. So, however, there has been a report that I went through from Down to Earth magazine, where it has identified that post 2012, the number of community rights and individual rights restored under this particular act has a certain amount of slowdown, sir.
Okay.
Especially in the KBK region and other belts which are mineral rich.
Okay.
So, sir, hence it has been a mixed bag, sir. So there is room for improvement that probably the state government can work towards.
Yeah. While the implementation is in progress in some states, there is an apprehension that the Supreme Court's orders in that Aravalli, mountains, hill range case, whatever they call it, Aravalli case, where certain encroachers have been removed, the Supreme Court said that no more tolerance, and if you are encroachers of reserve forest, if you are not eligible prior to 2013, you should be thrown out. So is there any such apprehension hanging in the minds of the NGOs favoring tribals in Odisha, according to your information?
Sir, yes, I do agree that there have been certain apprehensions, especially with Honorable Supreme Court judgment in the Aravali case. As well as prior to that, there was an eviction order delivered to almost 10 lakh people from different tribal and forest dwelling communities, sir. Sir, in context of Odisha, sir, one case comes to my mind is the case of Monkey Deer tribe in the Reserve Forest, where there was certain dispute in their community rights, and the tribes were asked to be vacated. However, in that case, sir, the rights of those tribals and forest dwelling communities were upheld in the court of law by Supreme Court. So, sir, apart from that case, I mean, I'm not able to think of any other case where such apprehension has been created, at least in Odisha context, sir.
Okay, very good. Now, as a student of management, can you tell me what is the difference between, being a student of financial management, especially, what is the difference between a trial balance and a balance sheet?
Sir, I apologize. I'm not able to recollect, sir. Concrete difference.
All right. Now, can you tell me any of the business failures by, say, Satyam or Jet, or any case which you have heard of as a management student? The reasons for business failure, is it financial failure, or is it fraud, or any other reason attributable?
Sir, talking about business failures, two very prominent cases come to mind. One is the Enron scandal.
Okay.
The second is a very similar Satyam scandal or Satyam failure in India.
Okay, tell me about Satyam.
Sir, I believe in these cases, the tone at the top and the governance failure is the main reason, sir. So more than fraud or more than lack of financial oversight or any decision-making lacunas, the failure of governance and the failure of ethical business practices is the main cause behind these failures. So even in case of Satyam, sir, the minority investor interests and stakeholder interests were not kept in mind while making certain investment decisions. And that is the main reason behind the entire scandal and the ultimate failure of Satyam, sir.
But do you know precisely that the Satyam, fudged the revenues from foreign countries by following accrual accounting system, and also fudged the bank balances and the deposit receipts of the banks, which he had also shown to the auditors. So you don't consider this to be a fraud? Is it only a case of unethical management or governance?
Sir, it is indeed a case of fraud. But again, the root cause of the fraud can be weak governance, sir. Because no fraud can be carried out without the oversight of the tone at the top, sir. Maybe the CEOs and the CMDs, they wear hand in gloves, and of course the auditors. So I think, sir, the ethical tone is always set at the top. If the leader is highly ethical, then naturally the tone will follow. So that is the root cause. But again, sir, yes, you're right. As the manifestation was fraud and eventual downfalls.
Okay. Now, what inference did you draw, or do you draw, when fellow like Ramalinga Raju, who was the chief CEO of Satyam, when he said he was riding a tiger and there is no other alternative for him, and therefore he had to disclose the fraud?
Sir, I'm really sorry. Again, your voice is cutting out, sir.
Okay. Now, Satyam Ramalinga Raju, as CEO,
yes, sir.
When he said he was riding on a tiger, what inference did you draw, or do you draw, from such a statement of a CEO of a big company like Satyam and Mitas?
Sir, my apologies, sir. I'm not aware of the statement.
Okay, all right. All right. Now, do you know what a monetary policy is?
Yes, sir.
What does it aim at?
So the monetary policy is determined by the central bank of a nation, and it mainly targets the inflation in an economy.
Very good. Okay, now tell me about the insolvency and bankruptcy code and the way that it has been implemented so far in India.
So the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code is a landmark piece of economic legislation that was brought about in the year 2016 in India to ensure exit process for ailing, so that the concept of creative destruction can be brought about, and assets and other capital which can be freed up and reused can be done within the economy. Sir,
Okay.
coming to the implementation part,
Yeah.
it's a complex piece of legislation, sir, and it is very, very dynamic as well, because we have seen multiple rounds of amendments and multiple court judgments having their own interpretations in the law. Sir, I believe it is doing well in terms of freeing up capital, freeing up assets. However, one area of lacuna, sir, one area of concern has been not meeting of the deadlines prescribed within the law,
Yeah.
primarily because of lack of consensus amongst creditors and the complexity involved, as well as lack of trained insolvency professionals, sir. Sir, I think these are the areas of concern. I believe it will take certain amount of time before the law itself and the supporting infrastructure matures for the law to start delivering on the swift justice it was brought about for, sir.
Okay. Do you think the recent judgment of the Supreme Court, which said that one can proceed against the director's personal assets in case they have guaranteed the company's performance, and will it improve the corporate governance in future because of this order of the Supreme Court?
Sir, although I'm not aware of this particular judgment. However, looking into the merits of the judgment, sir, I believe it will definitely improve certain amount of accountability by the board of directors, because having a personal skin in the game will make them more aware and more accountable, sir.
Okay. Finally, before I pass on to my co-panelists, tell me, what are the sustainable development goals and to what extent Odisha as a state has so far achieved?
Sir, sustainable development goals are the broad level policy framework defined and decided at the level of United Nations in 2000. Sir, those are the broad goals that the nation and state governments should target till 2030, and they have to be achieved by 2030. Sir, broadly speaking, they are targeted at socio-environmental as well as politico-economic developments of all the nations, such as poverty eradication, education for all, health for all, so on and so forth. Sir, coming to Odisha, sir, again, the goals are 18 and they have multiple parameters.
17.
Yes, sir, 17 goals are there. And the sub-parameters, sub-goals run into 150s or 160s, sir. Odisha government and the state of Odisha, they have been doing well in some parameters, such as for example, sir, health and education have been made the priority for last 5 years.
Okay.
Even at rural level, even in KBK regions, the maternal mortality, infant mortality rates have been continuously improving. Anti-malarial campaigns have been carried out. The primary healthcare has been improved by and large. Sir, the education of girl children has been made priority by the current government.
Okay, thank you.
Improvement in that. However,
Okay.
sir,
Okay, fine, I understand. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Vivek Garu.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Zubin. Good to see you here.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I'm unable to.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I visible and audible to you?
So you are visible, but your voice is slightly feeble. I'm not able to hear you very properly.
The problem, in fact, I'm keeping the mic also close to my mouth. Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Is it okay? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Reasonable level, decibel levels. Hello.
Hello, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Okay, good. Let us go ahead. Now, I find that, sometimes I find some young men and women, someone says they are into MBA, someone says they are into BBA. I have often wondered what is the difference between a BBA course and an MBA course. So, which brings me to the question of what is the difference between management and administration?
Sir, the first part of the question, the BBA is a bachelor course, hence it is slightly more generic in nature, and MBA is a master's course, hence one goes for more specialization, may it be in a domain of finance, marketing, or operations, or even IT. Sir, the second part of the question, the difference between management and administration, to my mind, sir, so management is something which attempts to achieve a preset goal in the most effective and efficient manner possible. Whereas in administration, the goal setting is also done by the administration, and achievement is again, it falls back on the administration itself. For example, the policies of the government are determined by the upper echelons, the political leaders, as well as the upper level bureaucrats. Whereas the administration at the district level has to work towards achievement of the same. So that is a difference, sir. To my mind, administration both sets the goals as well as achieves it.
Anyway, yeah. Now there's also a talk about so-called the new public management in bureaucracy. Did you ever try to understand what it means?
Sir, I'm really sorry. Are you talking about public management?
Yeah, yeah. There is in recent times some talk about the new so-called new public management element being introduced in bureaucracy. Now tell me, as someone who is already in public service, uh, what is your understanding of this so-called new public management?
Sir, I beg your pardon. I am not aware of the concept, sir.
Okay, okay, okay. Now, also as a master of business administration, uh, typically what is meant by a corporate governance?
Sir, governance is basically the process of delivering certain promised services or goods. So similarly, corporate governance refers to uh, the efficient and effective delivery of goods or services by a particular corporate house,
Okay.
the ambit of its own code of ethics, its own vision and mission, as well as the legal setup of a particular nation state, sir.
Okay. So, which means the outcomes are more measurable and more quantifiable. Is that the end result?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
all the steps taken by the corporate of that particular corporate entity has to be calculable, predictable, and like you said, calculable to a certain extent, so that goals and means can be rationalized, and of course within the legal ambits of the nation
Of course.
state
Yeah, yeah.
that we're working in.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the move of the government these days is to run, public service on corporate lines. Now,
Sure.
do you see any kind of, echoing effect of corporate governance reflected or heard in the traditional bureaucracy?
Yes, sir. Especially after the 1991 LPG reforms, the bureaucracy and the public functions are more and more being corporatized, in a sense that more and more technology is being infused, specialists are being sought, the efficiency and accountability in terms of performance is being followed up and improved. So I think to that extent, corporatization is a good step. For example, the recent decision of the government to corporatize the major ports of India to improve their efficiency is a welcome step, as it improves accountability, it improves performance. And sir, it is also as per the what we call the New Washington Consensus, sir, wherein more and more private ethics can be brought into public services. So that being said, the core of public services, that is the welfare state, should not be forgotten, sir, because the public
Yes,
services,
please go on. Yeah,
yeah,
quite interesting. Yeah.
and not only focus on profit, sir.
Okay.
So that's my
Good.
understanding.
Good. Good. Excellent. Excellent. Now
Thank you,
tell
sir.
me, in recent times, I have been seeing, some talk about merit versus seniority in armed forces. Now you have some association with military, and your late father served in the military, and
So
then obviously, I presume at least it would have evoked some interest in you as well. Now tell me if uh, someone for the top job of defense forces, what is the
so
problem in say bypassing seniority and placing premium on merit?
So I believe when it comes to the armed forces or any other department of the government, the end goal of achieving the utmost security and sovereignty of the nation should rule the roost and should determine the decisions. So the conditionality of seniority is usually imposed in various departments to ensure that the decision making is neutral and political or external interference can be minimized. So that being said, if there is a candidate who is more meritorious and can deliver better on the front of security and the efficiency, then I personally do not see any problem in bypassing seniority, sir. And so that again is a decision which must be taken by the
Quite a
executive
lot
and
of,
the cabinet
the
committee on
so-called
appointments, sir.
yeah. Okay.
Sir.
Now, quite a few, critics, and also public policy observers and researchers, they are saying all along the principle of seniority has served, India very well. All
Sir.
the more, in defense forces. Now, why tinker with it unnecessarily, and why upset the apple cart?
So the domain of governance and even higher level appointments is very dynamic, sir, and we must keep abreast with the times and the demands. Sir, the legacy system has indeed served India well. However, with multiple newer phases of challenges emerging, for example, cyber warfare, cyber espionage, even the COVID situation, the black swan event of COVID, they have shown that in some places, in some cases, certain old processes have to be changed, sir. So if by changing certain old process and giving more priority to merit over seniority, if certain benefits can be achieved for the nation, sir, I believe we should go ahead with that. But again, sir, the accountability measures must be taken to ensure that no amount of malafide intentions creep in this decision making, sir.
Now, if you were to take, a call, let us say, if we're in a position to, finally act as an arbiter between the controversy between merit and seniority, what would be your take?
So my personal take would be on merit, because seniority itself brings experience and it creates certain skill sets and merit for a candidate. So if there is somebody maybe a little less senior but highly meritorious, sir, I'll side with him or her, sir.
Right. Now, also tell me, you studied sociology, and what insights have you gained, from the study of sociology? All the more being basically an engineer graduate, and then later on, as a management graduate. What has been your, takeaway from sociology?
Subject of sociology made me aware about certain contemporary social issues that we face, not only in our national context but also in global context. So my primary takeaway has been, sir, to be able to identify social stakeholders in various scenarios. So, for example, the phenomenon of patriarchy is something that one must be aware about while administration or any other situation, to accept the realities and act towards certain vulnerable sections, sir. So similarly, it made me aware about contemporary issues, the various vulnerable sections, and how to go about addressing them, sir.
Okay.
That was
Now,
the biggest
yeah,
thing.
yeah, fine, I agree. Now, talking about vulnerable sections and issues like affirmative actions and all that. Now, in the recently concluded Parliament session, there was overwhelming unanimity about extending these reservations to OBCs and all that. Now, tell me, evaluating the caste system.
Sir, I'm sorry, the last line I could not hear, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
After the
Are reservations really perpetuating caste system? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Was the
sir.
question clear? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
Sir, every governance tool, such as the affirmative action derived from the Constitution itself, is not a scalpel, rather it is a blunt tool. that can be utilized for both positive and negative purposes. Sir, given that we are a welfare state and there is a constitutional mandate, I believe reservation is an affirmative action. It's a tool and a vehicle for social upliftment, and it should be continued. Rather, the nefarious usages of reservation policy, such as castization of politics, divisive politics, they should be avoided, sir. So I think reservation in itself is not a negative thing. It is not perpetrating casteism. Rather, it is helping uplift the caste, the socially and educationally backward caste. Rather, it is the politicization and nefarious usages such as hate speech and certain riots that are resulting in casteism, sir.
But there is also a persistent and also strident demand from various communities to claim themselves to be uh, more backward than
Yes, sir.
perhaps they actually are.
Sir.
And it would also look like there is a vested interest in someone claiming to be backward.
Sir.
So we get over this, tricky situation.
Yes, sir. So yes, this phenomenon is very prevalent, sir, as we have seen in multiple dominant castes such as Jats and Patidars of Gujarat asking for reservation. Sir, I believe to avert such a situation, sir, it's again a very complex social reality and a social situation that can have multiple manifestations. But sir, given my limited knowledge, I believe 2 or 3 steps can be taken by the government. The first, a very strict criteria must be decided and defined to collect evidences and data-driven decision making when it comes to underrepresentation of certain castes. There is- Second, sir, certain reforms must be brought about in the reservation system itself, because it has been increasingly observed that the reservation benefits are being cornered by the elites within a certain caste or a tribal community. And hence, it has to be made broad-based so that more and more people can benefit. And so lastly, I believe the government also needs to track the actual benefits accruing to the vulnerable sections and the vulnerable communities, so that if a particular community is now well represented and uplifted, then slowly and steadily the reservation benefits can be phased out for those targeted communities or castes, so that the exclusion and inclusion errors can be avoided, sir.
Yeah.
And that will also
Yeah.
lead to a lot of reduction in
Yes,
demand
yes,
for reservation.
I understand. So therefore, it would look like we are seeing perhaps some kind of a nexus, which is more or less inextricable kind of a nexus between
Sir.
caste and economic status, which perhaps is not really the case, at the ground level. Invoke economic status as a criterion for affirmative action. There is a presumption in our all our argument about affirmative action. There is a presumption that social status as well as economic status in our context, Indian context, are so intimately intertwined. Okay.
Yes, sir.
But the ground reality is something different, and the reflection of it, by way of government's initiative, you can see in terms of extending some reservations to economically weaker sections.
Yes, sir.
Now, I was just wondering, instead of persisting with this, nexus between social status and economic status, why not change the criterion to economic status, which is more rational, more open, and therefore more amenable to response to the evolving situation.
Yes, sir.
So, what is your view on this?
So we believe that social status and economic status are intertwined. Has a historical backdrop of the caste system for being prevalent for thousands of years. And in fact, the reservation itself was brought about to address this particular power gap, the power distance. So that being said, it has been 70 years since the reservation policies have focused on caste and the particular communities such as tribal communities. Sir, I believe I do support the argument, sir, that reservations based on economic status in today's secular world is a much more rational policy to follow. And sir, a good start has been made by introducing the economically weaker section reservation. So probably as and when the social morality and the social realities change, probably in certain amount of time we can hope to see the change being brought about in a larger way, sir. I do support the argument, sir. It will be much more measurable. It will be much more rational and direct.
Good. That was very stimulating. This, yeah, that's okay. Understood. Yeah, I know. Yeah, that was very stimulating talking with you, Zubin.
Thank you,
My
sir.
co-panelist will now continue this conversation with you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jubin,
Yes, sir.
happy Independence Day.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.
Thank you. So, what is meant by Jubin? What is the meaning of this word?
So Jubin is a Parsi word. It's the peak of a mountain.
Mm-hmm. Then why you got it? Why you got this name?
Sir, my father liked the name, so
Zubin Mehta.
he decided. Yes, sir. Zubin Mehta is a famous orchestra conductor, sir.
Yes. Mr. Jubin, we also found that there was a change as far as your state's name is concerned.
Sir.
Earlier, we used to call this as Orissa.
Yes, sir.
Now, this is now named as Odisha.
Sir.
Now, tell us, what is the basis for the change of this name? Where do you find the original name with which this name is affected? So there are some inscription for this. Can you throw some light on this change?
Sir, I am actually not aware about certain inscriptions.
Yeah,
However,
that is there in Puri. That's why your name is
in Jagannath Temple, sir. Yes.
Yes, that is there.
So so the primary decision was to suit the local language because it was believed that Orissa is again the way the British used to pronounce it, and that is the reason it was followed even after independence. So Odia is the kind of pronunciation which is found in the local language, sir. So it is a tribute to the local language that the government decided to change the name and requested the parliament to do so.
Only the language point of view, or from the place point of view, or the people point of view? From which point of view this name is changed?
Sir, the language itself is highly and intricately combined with the culture and the people and their aspirations, sir.
Yeah, I am aware. Now, my question is very simple. From which point of view this change is effected?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not aware of the exact reason.
It's okay. Mr. Jubin, I think as a student of sociology, you can appreciate this. There is a judgment in the case of Sabrimala. There is one case in the case of the Maratha reservations. Just now we have discussed this. Now tell us, these two judgments were given by the Supreme Court of India.
Yes, sir.
And these two judgments were appreciated and they were also opposed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now tell us, from which point of view how can we see these two judgments? And that principle, what you have used the word at the beginning, that emotional intelligence. The second component of emotional intelligence is very, very important for bureaucracy. And the two judgments are related to that principle. Now interlink these two and tell us, what is the basic principle behind the two judgments and how this principle is useful for administration and for personal life also.
Sir, in appreciating both these judgments, emotional intelligence is very important because it helps us identify our emotions. However, keep it in check so that a rational decision can be arrived at. So if we look at the decision from the prism of emotional intelligence as well as rationality, the legal jurisprudence followed by Supreme Court has been the same, sir. The interpretation of Article 14 vis-a-vis Article 25 in case of Sabrimala case, and Article 14, 15, and 16 analyzed in the context of Indira Shahani judgment in case of Maratha reservation case, sir. So hence, the moment a community, sir, any decision taken by the Supreme Court or even the government or any other department, will definitely benefit certain community, and it may be inimical to certain communities' interests, sir.
Yes.
So hence, emotional intelligence is very important. In even if I'm part of the aggrieved community, I must use my emotional intelligence to realize that Supreme Court is the highest judicial
Yeah,
authority of the
yeah. Mr. Dubin, that's not the issue here.
sir.
In the emotional intelligence, there are some components. So
Sir.
emotional intelligence built on four or five components.
Yes, sir.
Now, Daniel Goleman now reduced them to 4, but originally brought it to 5 components. Now, one component is related to these 2 judgments, and that component is the most vital component for for the administrators or
Yes,
for
sir.
the common people. So that's from that point of view, specifically, which component it is touching, and what exactly the component, and how it is useful for administrators. So that's the question.
Sir, thank you, sir, for the correction, sir. Sir, I believe the component that these issues are revolving around is the component of identifying others' emotions and finding a way to manage them, sir.
Okay.
So that, to my mind, sir, is very is helpful in administration as well as in.
What about that's called the 4th component? What you have brought it here. What about the 2nd component? I think you are aware of the 2nd one.
So the 4 components that I can recollect are identifying one's emotions. Second is identifying others' emotions. Third is managing own emotion, and 4th is managing others' emotions. So at this point, I'm
That's
not
the
able
second
to
version. So the original version is different. The first one is self-awareness, self-regulation,
self-regulation,
self-motivation, social awareness, and social skills. So these are the 5 aspects. Now, regarding this second one, that is called the self-regulation. This comes under the self-regulation, and in the self-regulation, there is a very important principle behind that. So, are you aware of this? So, I will give the principle if you are not aware. That is about be unkind to be kind.
So
what exactly is this principle, and how it is related to the 2 judgments?
Sir, I may have to do some more reading on this, sir. I'm not able to currently.
Okay, Jibin, let's move on. Orissa implemented a scheme known as the Kalia scheme. Kalia.
Yes,
So
yes,
I think you are aware of this.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, now compare this Kalia scheme with the PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, and where it is superior to the central scheme.
Sir, Kalia scheme is a benefit transfer program
Yes.
of the state government of Odisha.
Yes.
So 1 second, sir.
Yeah.
I'm experiencing some technical difficulty. Just give me a second. So am I audible, sir?
Yeah, audible. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir. So Kalia scheme is a direct benefits transfer scheme by the state of Odisha, target the agriculturalist of the state.
Yes.
A very similar scheme is again Kisan scheme by the central government. However, there is one nuance which makes Kalia different is that it also covers the landless laborers, sir, which is not the case in case of Kisan scheme.
Yes.
And so secondly, there are certain insurance as well as scholarship schemes also available within Kalia, which is present in Kisan. So these are the 2 differences that come to my mind.
Okay, Jubin, let's move on to your state again.
Sir.
Way back, there is a couple came to Orissa, and you know pretty well, his name was Graham Staines. Graham Staines, and he was burnt alive.
Yes, sir.
His son and daughter both were also burnt alive, but his wife Gladys Staines remained in Odisha to sustain and continue the program undertaken by her husband.
So
now, tell us what we can learn from this incident.
Sir, multiple lessons can be learned, sir.
Yes.
Firstly, talking about the unfortunate incident of burning, it shows that there are certain nefarious elements still present in the society who are not afraid of taking law into their own hands,
Hmm.
perpetrating the vicious cycle of violence,
Hmm.
so that the intercommunal harmony can be attacked and disturbed.
Hmm.
That is a very essential lesson to learn for especially the police administration and the district administration.
Hmm.
Secondly, the case was very complex in a sense that it involved the question of religious conversions and whether they are legal or whether they are socially acceptable. That is something which is again a matter sub judice in front of Supreme Court, sir. So thirdly, coming to the life of Mrs. Staines,
Hmm.
it is inspiring because despite of having such a life-altering loss, she continued with conviction, and that is something we can learn from, sir. And that is again coming back to emotional intelligence. One can learn that how
Yeah, of
she.
course. That's a panacea, but specific aspect is about the commitment. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Not giving up the commitment. Yes, sir.
Yes. Yeah. So coming to again Orissa, your MP, Rajya Sabha member, as well as the ex-CAG, he gave he gave a statement stating that we can learn. That means the India can learn a great lesson from Orissa. So what exactly is the lessons we can learn from Orissa? Being a person from Orissa, I think you feel proud to say that these are the lessons.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So I believe the first lesson that we can learn from Odisha is being tenacious because due to the topographical and geographical factors,
Hmm.
the state is exposed to various and continuous wrath of nature in terms of cyclones.
Hmm.
Despite of that, the state has remained a bright spot in terms
Hmm.
of its very slow but gradual elevation of poverty and
Hmm.
so on and so forth. The second thing that we can learn from Odisha is the disaster management,
Hmm.
because it is one aspect which has been hailed by the United Nations as well.
Yes.
So the community-led program of disaster management
Hmm.
is something rest of the states can learn from Odisha, sir.
Hmm.
And the third thing, sir, is the way that state has been able to protect and preserve its heritage culture.
Hmm.
Especially the gold revolving around the Golden Triangle, Puri, Lingaraj, as well as Konark, sir.
Hmm.
But I think these three we can learn from the state of Odisha, sir, and many more. But these are the 3 points which come to my mind.
Okay. Anything related to sports?
Yes, sir. So the recent success of hockey team, sir, where the hockey as a sport has been adopted by state of Odisha,
Hmm.
and in fact it has hosted the last 3 World Championships, including the World Cup. So that is something again. If more states can come ahead and adopt a single sport, probably we can see many more success stories at Olympics. Sir.
Hmm. So as a student of financial management, I think from your MBA, I found that you also is an expert in the financial issues. Now, I would like to ask a question. When can we say that a man has attained? Because today we are all celebrating the Independence Day. So
Sir.
a man should also celebrate his Independence Day. That's called the Financial Independence Day.
So
when can we say that a man has attained the financial independence in his life?
Sir, financial independence is again a very personal concept. So it depends on the person, his aspirations. Sir, the 2 factors to which contribute to financial independence
Mhm.
is the first, the ability to make free choices, the freedom of choice, and the second, to have the financial capability to
Hmm.
achieve those. So as long as a man or a woman has those 2 factors, then I believe he or she has attained financial independence. And sir, it has a certain amount of material, base. However, it goes beyond that. Sir. It has more to do with self-actualization, what one's needs and wants are. So it is a very personal decision and a personal benchmark. Sir.
Yeah, okay, anyway, let us discuss afterwards. In Odisha, there is a word called KISS, very famous in Odisha. KISS.
Sir.
What is KISS in Odisha? Kalinga Institute
Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences.
Social sciences. Yes, that's right. Recently, it held a Guinness World Record for one event. Are you aware of this event? Regarding the tribal issue.
I'm sorry, sir, I'm not aware of it.
Okay. Coming to the last question from my side is the social change.
Sir,
Social change. Now, how can we define social change? In simple terms, not in
Yes,
bigger
sir.
terms, which others cannot understand. Yeah.
sir, social change is a process which is gradual, which leads to certain changes in culture as well as institutions of a society, sir, over a
Hmm.
period.
Hmm.
So, if
Okay.
you permit, I quote an example,
Not necessary.
sir.
What, according to Mr. M.N. Srinivas,
Sir.
are the three processes which are required to social change, to effect social change?
Sir, Professor M.N. Srinivas
Yes.
focused on changes in both structure as well as functions of social institutions.
Hmm,
Being
hmm,
social functional background, so to him, the three main forces driving social change in India
hmm,
were first Sanskritization,
hmm,
second Westernization,
hmm.
and three modernization. Sir.
Modernization, did he mention?
Sir, during the later part of his career, he mentioned modernization as an overarching factor, which is operating at a higher level compared to the Westernization process. Sir.
So actually, he has used the word called secularization process.
Yes, sir. He also used secularization. Yes.
Yeah, it's nice
Thank you,
talking to Mr. Jubin Mahapatra, or to our friend Somshik.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Tuvin.
Good evening, sir.
First of all, I wish you get over this quickly and are fit to face
Thank
the main interview board soon.
Thank you, sir.
On August 13th, the Prime Minister launched the National Vehicle Scrappage Policy. Now, what are the
Yes,
key ingredients of this policy, timelines, and what does it really envisage?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not able to recollect the details, sir.
Okay.
But the policy.
Okay. So, in the recent Tokyo Olympics, India performed quite well.
Yes.
Can you tell me what are the three main takeaways for India from these Olympics? Is it different from their performance earlier?
So the key takeaways are first, we won the first gold medal in fields and tracks event. That is a very good sign, and probably that particular sports can be given more patronage by Sports Authority of India and the government. Secondly, the performance of women athletes has been stellar in this particular Olympics. So that is again, sir, in the long run, probably women of India can be more and more empowered to participate in sports activities, and they can bring laurels for the country. And so, thirdly, after the debacle of Rio Olympics, this Olympics broke all the records in terms of number of medals for India, which is again a good sign, sir, because certain structural changes were brought about after the last Olympics, such as focusing on Northeast, having a sports university in Manipur, so on and so forth. So that is indication that these good work and good steps should be continued.
Okay.
A very bright example being patronage given by Odisha to hockey, sir.
Okay.
So probably these steps should be further taken and further enhanced.
Now, if you look at the medal winners,
Sir.
the 7, 6 had coaches from abroad.
Sir.
Except Mirabai Chanu, who had a national coach. All the other medal winners were coached by international coaches, and then they practice abroad in terms of competitive environment and all that. What is the lesson from this in terms of preparedness? Should we have a 2-track strategy wherein you focus on infrastructure and coaching in India, and also expose the potential sportsmen to international competition? or should we develop that kind of a expertise within the country? So you're frozen or I'm frozen. Zubin?
Yeah, he's frozen, sir.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, yeah. You heard the question? Should I repeat?
Sir, I heard till the point that should we have a two-pronged strategy
Yeah.
of
Mm.
foreign as well as Indian?
Yeah. What should be our strategy to
Sir.
raise the level of our performance, at international events,
Sure.
especially the Olympics, which
Sir. Sir, yes, sir. Having a two-pronged strategy will definitely help, sir. So the first priority should be given to sports infrastructure in a bottom-to-top model, bottom-up model, wherein the grassroots level talent can be identified right from school level, and in that the local scouts, the domestic coaches can help in preparing these young talents for the national level. And once the talent is identified at national level, sir, I believe the state should provide funding and patronage, even if the requirement demands that foreign coaches be brought or the talent are given foreign exposure, sir. Because having foreign coaches has paid rich dividends, as we see in case of USA and China, sir. Because there are certain infrastructural deficits which we still have in India, and given the lack of resources and competing demands, even social developmental demands, there is a limit to what the government can do in terms of infrastructure in India. So having foreign coaches and foreign exposure will definitely help, sir, in
and
making our athletes more competitive.
And also looking at the way these winners are being groomed, mostly like badminton. You have Gopichand Academy, right?
Yes, sir.
And Neeraj Chopra went all the way to Germany, and private sector role, or
Yes,
is
sir.
it critical now for a takeout, because government all said and done has Khelo India scheme to the Olympics podium, and lot of infrastructure,
Yes,
a lot of stadia of international level also in Delhi and many cities. But then the extra push that is required, should the private sector play a bigger role?
Yes, sir, definitely. The private sector can probably bring in some sponsorship for individual athletes, because as we're seeing after the Olympics, the winners of the medals are being lapped up by the private sector for image building and advertising campaigns. So if they can, divert certain funds under CSR also to sponsorship, it's a win-win for both, sir, because the brand itself will benefit as a sponsor, as well as the athletes who are facing financial crunches.
Okay. Now, as part of your, I think, college, you had some activity related to preparing a social business plan, and
Yes,
also,
sir.
won an award perhaps in competitions at the ISB, IIT, BHU, so on.
Yes, sir.
Shabda Shiksha. Okay. Said a social business plan for deaf children. Now,
Yes,
what
sir.
is the learning from that? And one thing before we proceed, this deaf is not a correct word to be used now, proper word. Now you should say hearing challenged. Blind is also addressed as visually challenged. I think in the deaf you mentioned as a deaf child children. Yeah.
Well, sir, I do agree to that. However, sir, upon my interaction with the community themselves take a lot of pride in calling themselves deaf.
Oh,
And in fact, there has been a campaign by Rehabilitation Council of India and the deaf community called Deaf with a capital D. So they prefer being called deaf, and they do not see, deaf as a derogatory word, sir.
that's
So that is the reason I maintain deaf, sir.
okay. But what was the learning from this competition? What was the thrust of your argument or plan, and how it can be extrapolated in real life?
So the plan basically revolved around creating school infrastructure for deaf children between the age of 0 to 5 years of age group, wherein a hybrid course can be followed, where they can be not only taught in sign language, but also through modern technologies and lip reading methodologies, so that they can be mainstreamed in regular curriculum schools after 5 years of age group. So currently, majority of schools in India are only relying on sign language, which inhibits and limits the potential that these children can achieve because they cannot be mainstream in higher education systems. So that was the idea behind the plan, sir. So the learnings were manifold from my experience. First of all, sir, I realized that there is no limit to the potential of people with disabilities, because I have interacted with deaf children who have gone on to achieve engineering degrees, who know how to play music as well beautifully, and have represented India in various forums. That was a very, very enlightening experience for me to have. Secondly, I also learned many things about the entire ecosystem of how disability is handled in India, sir. Right from parental sensitization to how economic and social factors interplay with somebody's disability and their potential in life, to government organizations and infrastructure, sir. So that I believe can help me in administration as well.
Okay. If you happen to be a decision maker in a district, so you can
Sure.
implement some of these in terms of a concrete plan and also take it forward.
Yes, sir. I'm very hopeful towards doing so, sir.
Okay. No, it was nice talking to you, Zubin.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Zubin with a J.
Sir,
That was nice. We now come to the end of the mock personality test.
sir.
When is your interview? The actual UPSC interview?
So my interview is on 25th of August. 10 days to go, sir.
That would be your second interview or more? Third?
So this will be my third interview with UPSC. Third interview.
You got into the IPS on the basis of the second interview or the first interview?
So the first interview, 2018, I got into IPS. 19, sir, I got 360 rank, but it was not good enough to get into IAS. So I took 1 year leave and I repeated the exam.
Okay. So how long were the earlier interviews?
Sir, in 2018, the interview was around 45 minutes.
And later, the second one?
And last year, sir, it was, I think, around 25 minutes.
Actually, their average time per candidate is about 25 minutes.
Yes,
very rarely they go beyond 30 minutes. But in your case, they went up to 45. I don't know what is the reason. But how many marks out of 275 did you get in the first interview and in the second interview?
So first interview, I got 171. The second, I got 170.
But you are a very good material, very mature, very balanced, very well informed, good in communications. You should get about 210. I wonder what went wrong. Anyway,
So the
let's
first
hope.
interview, I made certain mistakes, sir. In the first interview, there was some factual error that I committed while telling the answer. So I self-corrected myself. However, after that, the last 15 minutes, I kind of fumbled a bit because it impacted my confidence. That was the issue in first interview. Second interview, to my mind, went well, but again, I faced Pradeep Joshi sir's board. So again, I mean, going by the analysis and all that, he's a little conservative. It's a conservative board. I'm not really sure what went wrong last year.
Was it the same board that interviewed you the first time and the second time?
Sir, I'm sorry, sir. I'm not able to hear you.
My God. Was it the same board that interviewed you on both the occasions?
Hello.
Was it the same board that interviewed you on the
No, sir.
first?
No, sir. The first time I went to Bharat Bhushan Vyas sir's board. The second was with Pradeep Joshi sir, who is currently the chairman.
And coincidentally, the marks were almost identical, except that the
Yes,
second time they gave you 1 mark less.
Yes, sir.
They have committed an error. Even Supreme Court commits an error. So it's okay.
Sir.
There is a wrong evaluation. But
Sir.
it can happen. They were in a hurry. Probably they were in a hurry, or I don't know really. Or they had some members who were very much inimically disposed towards you. But let's hope this time you will walk into the IAS. I really don't know what is the help that we can do, but that's only speaking for myself. Otherwise, the remaining members of the panel will now give you their perception of how we have done and identify areas where you need to work a little more and
Yes, sir.
eventually get into the Indian Administrative Service. Okay?
Sir.
While you are listening to the feedback from the remaining 4 panel members, you would be tempted to ask a few questions. But hold on. Towards the end, I'll give you an opportunity to seek all your clarifications and ask as many questions as you want. Okay? Anyway, Dr. Gopal Garu.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, Mr. Jubil Mehta, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what the chairman has said about his impressions on the way you performed in this mock interview, and also agree with him that you deserve much higher percentage of marks in the personality test. Now, considering your high-profile CV and the lucrative qualifications and the jobs that you held, there will be a tendency on the part of the board to take you to a different level as far as questions are concerned. You must be prepared for that. So you will be tested in a very high range of a equilibrium or at a very fundamental level to see, whether you strike a balance between high profile questions, answers and fundamentals. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can. I'm really sorry, sir. I think there is some technical issue. I can hear you better now.
Okay. Now, what I was trying to tell you is, considering your very high profile qualifications and the lucrative jobs that you have held, there will be a tendency on the part of the interview board to take you at a higher level of equilibrium as far as conceptual questions are concerned, and also bring you down to fundamentals. So you should be able to strike a balance between high profile discussion and also address fundamental issues.
Yes,
this is the range that you can expect. Now, see, for such types of questions, there are no specific answers. You can answer in any manner you want. You should be able to justify your answers. Now, I tell you the way you answered one question and how it should have been understood. For example, I'm just trying to say that brought it down. And that's the reason why when I said, he announced openly that he was riding a tiger, it means that he didn't know if he falls down, he'll be eaten away by the tiger. So most of these big stakeholders, like people who have invested, the politicians, everybody was trying for this fellow to commit mistakes and then get, some return out of it. So that is the whole issue. Okay, this is that you could answer in any way, but defend your answers. But essentially, when you said it's not a fraud, it's not correct. Okay. Then again, coming down to basic brass tacks of difference between a trial balance and a balance sheet. When you do finance, of course, you are not an accountant to that extent, I agree. But when you do finance, you are expected to know that the balance sheet is something, a statement on a particular date, which gives the position of assets and liabilities of a particular individual or a firm on a particular date and financial position, assets, liabilities. Trial balance is something where all the debit balances and credit balances of all the ledgers are drawn to see whether they are tallying or not.
Sir.
Now, this is a fundamental question. Now, you could
Sure.
answer by saying, I don't know, sorry, I don't know, but by saying, sir, I'm not very good at accounting. I'm afraid I will not be able to give the definition of a trial balance and balance sheet. Maybe that would be a better answer.
Sir.
No, since here we are here to criticize you and not appreciate you, that I'm saying all this so that you understand what will be there in the
Yes,
minds
sir.
of the board and how you can build on your strengths. Otherwise, your top class, your 17 goals and 169 targets or sub goals of the SDGs. You mentioned the numbers correctly. Then that's it. All other, as far as I am concerned, you address the issues very well, and your awareness levels, your depth of knowledge, your variety of issues on which you have understanding is top class. I'm sure
Thank you.
you will do definitely much better if you can only try to go up and down based on the range, what is there in the interviewer's mind.
Sir.
Giving
Sir.
some answer just doesn't suffice because you are a high profile guy. All right.
Sir.
Good luck. All
Sir.
the best. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
And get back to RT-PCR negative soon.
Thank you, sir.
Zubin, I find a lot of positive traits in you in terms of your articulation, number one. In terms of your ability to reason out the line of argument on a given issue. In fact,
Sir.
if you have noticed, I have consciously chosen only one or two issues, and we have at some length we have discussed. Typically,
Yes, sir.
We test a candidate on a variety of things, a bit of economics, a bit of current affairs, a bit of law, and things like that. But the way you were trying to present a particular issue and also state your position on that issue, I found it rather interesting. That's why our conversation was confined mainly to three aspects. Number one, about the difference between management, administration, and corporate governance. Though you were not familiar with the term per se, that is new public management, which is normally expected of a public administration student or even a political science student. But I thought maybe you having studied MBA, perhaps you would have come across this term. But nevertheless,
Sir.
you really got to the core of the concept of introducing corporate governance elements into public administration.
Sir.
So that is setting the goals, then deliveries, quantification, and all that. But the downside of introduction of corporate governance into public administration is typically any corporate governance is all about investment and making money, isn't it?
Yes,
At
sir.
the end of the day, any capitalist would look for what? Return on investment, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Even if he is doing some corporate social responsibility also, he would also seek some kind of a visibility which would pay him off in some other way, right?
Sir.
But state and public administration is not about earning profits, which you also rightly said at some point in the course of our discussion. So I found that though you were actually not familiar with this term, but you nevertheless touched upon this aspect, and also when it came to merit and seniority, and also on reservations, we had somewhat lengthier discussion, though we were temporarily disrupted by the technology glitches. But then nevertheless, you have this admirable ability of striking a balance between opposing views, and which is really what is required for a good public servant. And you are able to present your case with a fine balance between opposing ideas. Zubin, are you with me? Zubin? Zubin? Don't know.
Am I audible, sir?
You are audible, it's okay. If you are not visible also, it's okay, fine if there is a problem.
Yes, sir.
So what I was mentioning was, you have this ability of wriggling out of, very tricky situation by striking a fine balance between opposing views and contradicting, issues.
So, so
Therefore, it's a good trait, all the more for a prospective public servant who is going to spend the best part of his life, addressing public issues. This is a very good trait, and I would only urge you to stick to your own style, uh, and also perhaps between now and the actual date of interview, if you can keep in touch with the latest developments by adopting the same style of striking a balance between different facets of the problem. I'm sure you will be able to present yourself, in the best of of your side, and
so,
therefore I would see a huge potential in you as a prospective, IAS candidate. I wish you all the best.
thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Jubin,
So,
this change of the name of Odisha to Odisha to Odisha, Odisha to Odisha. So this is there in the inscriptions of Kapilendra Deva of Gajapati Kingdom.
so,
So he gave the inscriptions on Puri temples. So you find the inscription of the Puri temple itself. There it was given as Odisha Rajya. Odisha Rajya or Odisha. These two names are used. So that is the
Yes, sir.
great inspiration to go back to the word called Odisha.
so, thank you, sir.
Yeah, you are from Puri and you are also from Odisha. So that is the relation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So coming to what Vivek sir said, normally we see the student's caliber and his experience. So what we ask about, it's not the normal questions. We go for some beyond the normal questions. So from that point of view, I asked this question, Sabrimala case under the Maratha reservations. Actually, a great personality thinks about the future, like a statesman. A politician thinks about today. So
Yes, sir.
most of the times, what we see is that we want to play to the galleries, and we want to make everybody happy. But Supreme Court need not. So Supreme Court sometimes with some of the great judges, they think about the future and they give some judgments. The present generations may not understand, but definitely that will be useful in the future. So that is very, very important what we must learn. And what you have used in the starting, that you use the word called emotional intelligence twice.
Yes,
So
sir.
that's the reason I want to know about the understanding of emotional intelligence by you. And hence I asked about the 5 components of emotional intelligence. And the number 2 is about the self-regulation. This is a very crucial element of what I can say, the administration.
Sir.
Because you cannot be tempted by what is being attracted. You go by the principles when you are guided by the self-regulation, the principle called self-regulation. Self-regulation goes by the principle known as be unkind to be kind. That means in the early stage, you may, whatever you are taking or you are giving is not helpful. Just like a doctor gives an injection, when the injection is given, you find there is a pain for your shoulder, but injection in the long run, maybe after 1 hour or 2 hours, that's going to take care of you. That's what is important for public administrators also.
So,
Policymakers and the implementers, so they must think about the future, not the immediate present. So from that point of view, I want to know whether you are aware of this particular concept known as be unkind to be kind. That comes under the second component of emotional intelligence. Anyway, that's one interesting aspect I would like to know from you. Coming to the former policies, Kalia is the policy taken up by Odisha government. So central government gives 6,000 rupees in 3 installments, but in Odisha it is 5,000 rupees per family in 5 seasons. So that's the way it is given. Coming to the income tax, suppose the union government is not going to give the or extend the benefit of the PM Kisan if they are income tax payers. But in this case, there is no such exclusion as far as the Kalia scheme is concerned. The third one is the landowners are given in the PM Kisan.
Yes, sir.
Whereas in, of course, Odisha, it is landowners, tenants, tenant cultivators, both are given the benefit.
So,
Okay, so Gladys Staines, a great lady. In my view, she's a great lady, even though her husband was burnt alive with 2 children, but she never left Odisha because she came with a cause, and the commitment is highly appreciable. And that, yeah, in one of her poor Kianjar districts, a great episode, we can definitely remember the lady. Coming to what we can learn from Odisha, so your MP has given many things to take care of. The first one from Puri is said the drink from the tap mission. That's number 1. I think you are aware of this.
sir, I'm sorry.
Drink from the tap mission.
Drink from the tap machine.
Yeah, that is there in Puri. Then jobs were given in the COVID. The jobs were given to the migrant workers, squatters, beggars in capital city Bhubaneswar. Of course, hockey, we have, I remind you, so hockey,
Yes,
that's
sir.
something
Yes,
important. Of course, disaster management, said Kalia, tsunami ready, UNESCO, there are many issues. What he has given, that these are the takes you can take from Odisha like that.
sir.
Coming to the financial freedom, this is very important because most of us are not aware of this. If we are aware of the financial freedom at the very young age, I think people need not think about anything else. But unfortunately, our education system never teaches about the freedom, especially the financial freedom to us. So we may realize at the end of our careers, maybe 30, maybe 50s and 60s like that. What exactly is financial freedom? Financial freedom, hope you understand the passive income. When your passive income takes care of your expenses, what is passive income anyway? From the finance student, you can understand that whatever savings you are investing,
Yes, sir.
yeah, whatever that is going to take care of your expenses, then you are gaining your financial independence. That's what you need not work. Your money is going to work. This is the great principle in financial management.
Sir.
You understand this? I think we hope you understand. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And coming to the KISS, the Kalinga Institute of Social Sciences, there was a Guinness Book of World Record in 2019. That is 26,000 tribal students. They were brushing. Normally, people say that the tribals that never brush, but this was an event where 26,000 students were given in a parade or maybe in a big gathering, brushing the teeth. So that's a big event, widely reported. And coming to the social change can be given in a simple way. That social change refers to modifications of social structures and processes over time. So the social structures and the processes over a period of time, this modification that can be called as the social change. MMC he has given 3 concepts. One about the Sanskritization. Earlier he called it Brahminization.
Brahminization. Yes.
Word is maybe from, it's not that much sounding nice. So he changed from Brahminization to the socialization. That's called the Sanskritization. And he said Westernization and secularization. What you said in the modernization process is given by somebody else. That is by Rogers and Ethan Tart and Alvin Toffler. These are the people who gave the word called the modernization process. Entirely different compared to the 3 processes. Westernization that is being used, but later it is now replaced by the modernization process. It's a very, very good, good word. So these are a few aspects which I shared with you. I think some gaps we can fill in, and that will definitely help you.
Thank you, sir.
I think 170 is less, as my chairman said, is less to your caliber, and we want to see that you cross 200. Hope that
Thank you so much.
with your preparation, you can cross 200 and get into IS. I wish you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Zubin, in addition to what my
Sir.
panelists have said, you are quite fluent. Your grasp of subjects is good, and also answers are reasoned, quite well reasoned out. So I think these are all positive. Few things you missed out, perhaps are in the Tokyo Olympics thing. One of the most significant takeaways is, in addition to winning the highest number of medals, and all that, if you look at long term, India has performed its best in many disciplines. Okay, diversified into golf, into archery, into table tennis, all this. So if you look at, if we are doing well in only 7 or 8, now we are done well in 12 to 13 events, which is quite promising because you can build on. And many women have done very well. So you're looking at a big, long-time takeaway. Otherwise, your answer is very good. Yeah. And the second on this Shabda Shiksha and all that, your answer is quite good. However, I think you should be reading up some of the latest developments and current affairs, because I think you are not aware of the National Vehicle Scrappage Policy.
Yes, sir.
They set some timelines for
Yes, sir.
period of commercial vehicles and personal vehicles. Commercial vehicles 15 years, personal vehicles 20 years, from 23, 24. Date lines. And then there are some issues, you can read it up. So otherwise, I wish you all the best. You should get 200 or definitely qualify this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Zubin, you have heard the feedback from all of us, at the end of which, is there anything that you want to ask us?
Yes, sir. Couple of questions I have, sir. May I ask?
Go ahead. Before that,
Yes, sir.
when are you planning to take some leave? Of course, that depends on the date on which your interview is refixed, if you are tested positive. Otherwise, it will be 25th, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How much leave do they allow in the NPA?
So they just allow leave before 1 day, sir. So 24th, I will be leaving NPA, and 26th, I will be coming back, sir. So it's just 2 days leave that we get.
Anyway, you have to read all the newspapers and things like that.
Yes, sir. We have to manage with little bit of time. So
You're capable. You are all capable.
yes, sir. And sir, in fact, being the eminent board, I also want to share something with a very heavy heart, sir, because I lost my mom to COVID just 3 weeks back.
Ooh.
That also created a little bit of
Yes.
mental
I
stress,
know.
because of which I could not keep abreast with a lot of things. So I'm trying
True.
to cover up as much as possible.
That explains why you didn't know about this 15 years for commercial vehicles and 20 years for
So
passenger vehicles. From
Yes.
the
so that being said, I mean, it's a reality I must face, and I have to be strong. So there's no other way. So I'll probably use these 10 days to cover up current affairs.
anything. And now you want to ask
Sir,
whatever
one
you
minute, sir. Mr. Jubin,
Sir,
is there any facility for you to reschedule your interview? Because
no,
that's
sir.
totally, I think, scheduled. Whether are they going to allow you to give some other date?
They will. If he tests positive,
Only if I test positive, sir, I think they will reschedule. That is the only consideration.
they will.
Yeah, they will have emergency quota. No problem. Some gaps will be there.
Sir.
No, they're very accommodative. They're very helpful.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes, sir.
your application should be accompanied by the doctor's certificate.
Yes, sir.
That is your
Negative,
NPA
negative.
doc.
Positive report.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yes,
that's
sir.
it. Positive. That's all. Okay, carry on.
Sir.
Whatever you want to ask.
Yes, sir. First of all, I wanted to understand from the board. I mean, like one of the honorary members pointed out that having a
Honorable.
Honorable.
yes, sir. Sorry.
While it is
Honorable member
also
pointed out.
true, it is an honorary
Honorary
job.
job.
Honorary, yes, sir.
But
Uh,
however, honorable is more
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yes.
Chalo.
It's okay.
So as he pointed out, having a balanced view helps. Same time, today morning I had a mock interview where it was pointed out that if they ask you for an opinion, which is very, very, let's say in some cases it can be extreme opinion, but if you have it, you must share it and not try to balance it all out. For example, I was asked if having Delhi commissioner from another cadre will impact the morale of Agmut cadre officers. So in that case, sir, can I understand that yes, of course it will. That we all of us
See,
know, but again,
yeah, no, it is the truth.
yes,
See,
sir.
there is no point your personal opinions. There are two questions here about Delhi Police Commissioner, which we asked to Tripurari. I think we asked Tripurari. You know Tripurari,
Yes, sir.
your friend.
He's a batchmate, sir. Yes, I know him. Sashwat.
Yeah.
We asked him. See, if the question is, do you think it is the right thing for the government of India to appoint Sri Rakesh Asthana as the Delhi Police Commissioner, or to appoint him as Delhi Police Commissioner 4 days before his retirement? Something like that. Then you have to say there are two views, sir. And one view is that it is unethical and he has some controversy, that too of corruption. There's a case registered. He fought with a fairly, I would say, well accepted former police commissioner and director CBI, some
Yes,
Verma,
Alok
Alok
Verma,
Verma.
sir.
He has a good reputation. This Rakesh Asthana doesn't have. So without saying all these things, there are two conflicting opinions. Some people say it is correct, some people say wrong. But if it is merely a question that, in your personal view, is it proper to get somebody from Gujarat cadre to become the police commissioner of Delhi, as if there are no capable officers in the Agmut cadre, then you can say it's a simple thing. Yeah, it is. It is not necessary at all. Agmut cadre has produced great officers.
Yes, sir.
See, it is not as though Gujarat is well known for its police officers. On the contrary, Gujarat is not at all well known for its police officers at any time. That is why they also took Julio Ribeiro. He was also DG of Gujarat.
Yes,
There was one good fellow called Sri Kumar, is now facing some prosecution, something like that. But otherwise, it had only third-rate officers. But without saying all this, so there must be some competent officers. Therefore, they could have appointed one of them.
Sir.
That is, if the question itself is not personal.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
if the question is general on, do you think it is the right thing to do, then you have to present both views. And same applies to the 3 farm laws about the amendment to the National Capital Territory of Delhi. I hope you know all these controversies. LG
Yes,
being,
sir.
and then Central Vista project, or the Pegasus spyware, etc. There are two points of view. You mentioned both. Don't unnecessarily give your personal opinion till asked for. If you are asked, then only you say. They may not ask because they want to test whether you are aware of both sides of the issue. That's all. Anything else? Anything else you want to ask?
So can I just excuse myself for 5 seconds? My additional
ahead.
director is calling phone and now on the line phone, sir.
You better
Just 5
answer.
seconds, sir.
Yeah.
Just 5 seconds.
Respond.
Survival. Respond. The present is more important than future. దీని తర్వాత ఒక ఆయనే ఉన్నాడా శుభాకృష్ణ?
Luckily.
అతను ఐపీఎస్ అండి.
మన తెలంగాణ కుర్రాడు రాలేదు సార్.
వస్తాడు ఎక్కడ పోతాడు?
మళ్ళీ సండేకి ఎప్పుడో
వాడు
Wednesday.
ఎప్పుడో పెట్టినట్టున్నారు.
తెలుగు వాళ్ళు చాలా అరుదుగా వస్తున్నారు అందుకని.
వాడు బ్రైట్ ఫెలో,
చెప్పింది ఆమె చెప్పింది 18th వస్తాడని చెప్పింది.
ఆయన ఏదో కారణం వల్ల ఇండిపెండెన్స్ డే వాళ్ళ అమ్మ నాన్న దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళినట్టు. ఇవాళ సండే ప్లస్ ఇండిపెండెన్స్ డే సరదాగా వెళ్ళాడు. వీళ్ళకి వెళ్ళడానికి ఎవరు లేరు, వీళ్ళు ఆ రూమ్ లోనే ఉంటారు. సో వీళ్ళకి పరేడ్ అయిపోయింది పొద్దున్న, ఇండిపెండెన్స్ డే పరేడ్. తర్వాత ఇతను అందులో జబ్బు పడ్డాడు అని అనుమానం కాబట్టి ఇతను పరేడ్కి వెళ్ళలేదు. అవతల వాళ్ళంతా వెళ్ళారు. త్రిపురారి వాళ్ళు వెళ్ళి వచ్చి బట్టలు మార్చుకుని స్నానం చేసి ఈ సివిలియన్ డ్రెస్ వేసుకుని వాళ్ళు వచ్చారు. Are you able to, Acha, who is your additional director? मुझे पता नहीं उसका नाम.
सर अभी आउटडोर्स में है मिस्टर सेजू कुरुविला. He is from Agmod cadre and his wife Meghna madam, she is additional assistant director indoor studies, sir.
So these are assistant directors, but you said some additional director.
So I misspoke, sir. So assistant director. Then after assistant director, there is joint director. Then there is director, sir. There is no additional director post.
अच्छा, आजकल additional director नहीं है. ठीक.
No, sir.
Fair enough. Right. Now, what else?
They actually just called to check that whether I got my test done.
अच्छा.
I said I have submitted my test. Yes, sir.
Excellent. अच्छा, अब you wanted to ask anything more about these controversial matters? Of course, you have to present both the views.
Sure. So secondly, when it comes to national security issues, for example, UAPA being misused, Pegasus again is a controversial issue, and Jammu Kashmir 370.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. See, there are two issues here: misuse and national security. There is no nexus between misuse and national security. In the name of national security, if they go on spying on journalists, on their own cabinet colleagues, and a member of the Rajya Sabha who is now incidentally the minister in charge of information technology, who is compelled to say that no such thing was done, is fraud.
Yes, sir.
If it is genuinely, if there is some chap, an ISI agent, he is misunderstanding national security with fraud, with cheating, with uttering lie. Who asked the government of India to take resort to these lying? They could as well approach the Home Secretary, Mr. Bhalla, who got an extension. He will sign anything, blank also. పేరును రాసుకుంటాడు, ఏముంది, ఎవడు ఫోన్ వినాలి, రైట్, ఆ పైన ఫిల్అప్ ద బ్లాంక్స్. సో ఈజ్ ఎవర్ విల్లింగ్. అది చేసి వీళ్ళు వీ టుక్ ది పర్మిషన్ ఆఫ్ ద కాంపిటెంట్ మ్యాన్ అంటే అయిపోను కదా. ఇదంతా ఈ అబద్ధాలేదు. అతను నో అంటాడా బల్లా?
అందులో రిటర్న్ అయ్యే 10 రోజుల ముందో 4 రోజుల ముందో, అందుకని
మాకు ఏపీ కాడర్లో సుశీల్ కుమార్ అని ఒక ఐఏఎస్ ఆఫీసర్ ఉండేవాడు. ఆయన ఎమర్జెన్సీ టైంలో he was one of the district collectors. Delhi those days didn't have police commissionerate system, it had collectors. సో అప్పుడు మీసాను యాక్ట్ ఉంటే ఎవరో వెళ్ళి సంజయ్ గాంధీ సాబ్ వాంట్స్ దీస్ ఫెలోస్ టు బి డీటెయిల్డ్ అంటే, అరే దేఖో బాబా यहाँ 20 है ब्लैंक वारंट, मैं साइन कर दिया, जो नाम चाहे आप फिलअप कर लो అన్నాడు. వాళ్ళు ఫిలప్ చేసుకున్నారు. That went to the notice of Shah Commission. They said, how dare you, you call yourself district magistrate, don't you have any shame? Are you not supposed to come to what is called subjective satisfaction on the grounds of detention? What kind of an IAS officer are you? And they repatriated him. అక్కడికి వచ్చాడు. బట్ ఇక్కడ మోరలెస్ ఆ తర్వాత మళ్ళీ రివైవ్ అవ్వలేదు ఆయన కెరియర్. మన ఏపీ కాడరే. మీరు ఎప్పుడైనా చూసారో లేదు సుశీల్ కుమార్?